What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Dead Noise. I'm Chris, and thanks to the power of Zoom, I am here with Mr. Joseph Lazzari from the punk band Reconciler. How you doing today?
Doing pretty good, man. How about yourself?
So far, so good. So first things first, your brand new EP, three songs, just came out at the time of this recording today. By the time people see this, it'll probably be a week into the release. But number one, how does it feel to just finally have these songs out in the world and for people to hear?
Um, I mean, it always feels a little bit surreal, you know what I mean? Like just because the process is always so long, you know, like um it's it's months, maybe years plus at this point, you know, like just the way that the whole machine has to roll to make it happen. Uh and I think the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes is so mammoth that like when the day comes, it's just like boop, here it is. You know what I mean? And you're like, huh, all right. We're really proud of these songs. And the 7 inch, we actually just got them in hand literally yesterday. We were scared that they weren't going to be here. So we got them and they look incredible, which is cool. So that's exciting. As the person that makes the album art and does all the layouts and stuff, there's always a little bit of panic until I get the thing in my hand and I can make sure everything looks like it's supposed to. So yeah, I'm really stoked on all that part.
And I know it's only three songs, and they're all like really, really solid tunes, but do you have a favorite, or is it hard to pick?
You know, if I had to say right now, I would say that Stockholm Syndrome was my favorite of that bunch.
Hmm.
And you know that was the single on it, but like the day that we had to like finalize what the single was going to be, like I was on the phone with Darren, like I don't know, like should it be Low? Do you also think we should change it and it should be Low should be the single, like Low's the song, you know, out of the three. So but all three of them, like you know, we didn't have like one song that we liked and two songs of filler, you know what I mean? Like we, you know, we don't have any like contracts to uphold to just get some shit out in the world, you know? So like no, there are three songs that we very much wanted to put out.
I was thinking about that with an EP, and it's such a short amount of music, but having to still promote it beforehand with a single, how difficult of a process was that for you? Because they're all like all three songs are really good. Like you said, there's no filler because with an EP, you really can't afford to have filler. Um, so did it really feel like just kind of throwing a dart at a board just to see which one would be the single?
Um, I mean, yes and no, but like conceptually, I think the stuff that binds those three songs together, I think is most encapsulated in Stockholm Syndrome.
Hmm.
So, you know, if any one of them had to speak for the rest of them, I think it's kind of that one. But at the same time, like yeah, when you're putting out a three song 7 inch, which like I still love 7 inches because like I think 7 inches are kind of like it's kind of the heartbeat of punk rock, at least historically, you know what I mean? And then like it's a great way to like receive music to, you know, to release music, I think. But like yeah, it's like when you have three songs, it's like when you put out a single, it's like, well, there's only two that nobody's heard yet. Like, should we just put them all out or what? You know what I mean? Like, and I think, you know, that stuff comes down to like the PR person's call. You know, it's like, I don't know what you're supposed to do. I think if we were a band that had like, you know, 100,000 followers on our own socials, you know, like we probably wouldn't have put out a single first. It's just like,
Hmm.
you know, but like, yeah, we're a small fry hardworking little band. We got to cast the widest net we can just to get people to, you know, hopefully give it a listen.
I agree with what you said. I think it would be really funny to just like with an EP kind of just be like, surprise, here it is. Like some bands are able to
Yeah,
do, but with the way the
yeah, for
industry
sure.
is, with the way the industry is, like you have to do a lot of stuff beforehand to get people excited and get people invested. Um, like
Yeah,
I'm very active in the local scene here and seeing everything that all the bands do just in advance of a single release when it's not even tied to an album or an EP, just to get people's attention. I'm like, Jesus, I can't imagine.
it's kind of going wild right now. Like I especially with streamers and stuff. I don't know if you've noticed this, but bands that are putting out LPs, like historically, you would release maybe three singles tops off of a full-length record. Like three is a lot, like three over the course of like maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, like trying to build up that momentum. But like, I feel like these days, bands that are releasing like a 10-song LP are putting out 6 songs before the thing comes out.
Yep.
And who's to say what's right or wrong? Like this is just, like the music industry right now is, I don't know, it kind of just feels like absolute chaos and people are just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. I don't know.
I've been on record many times saying how much I hate the fact that bands will release half the album or more than half the album before it's even out because
Yeah.
I'm always a fan of like being surprised. Like I never look at set lists before a show. I try to be as
Me
old school
neither,
as
man.
possible. So I'm like
My I have buddies that are like super into like the set list websites and stuff. And like if there's a big tour happening of a band we all love, they're like, you want to know what they're playing every night? I'm like, no, I don't want to know what they're playing every night. Like, get out of here with that. Like, yeah, I don't know.
I think it's one thing if it's like a tour that I know that I won't be able to go to, but if I already have
Sure,
tickets
sure.
and I know I'm
Yeah,
going, like for example, I'm a huge Alice Cooper fan. He's my favorite artist. So and he tours like all the time. So a couple years ago when he switched up his stage show and he said like it's going to be a new set list, I'm like, okay. I'm not going to look at anything because I know I won't be able to go
yeah,
to any of the shows this year. And then when he came, but when I knew I couldn't go to any of the shows for that leg, I forget he tours the same stage show for like years at a time. So I looked at the set list because I'm like, I'm not gonna go. What's the danger? And he's playing all my favorites and songs that like he hasn't played in like 30 years. I'm like, okay. Now I have to go, and thankfully he announced like shows near me later. But like I keep
yeah,
thinking to
yeah.
myself, like had I not looked at that set list in good faith that he would eventually come closer to me, like just how much bigger of an impact that would have made, you know?
Yeah, you would have been losing your mind in real time, not like expecting all the hits. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but as far as your EP goes, I think my favorite song from the EP is probably Low. Um, do you have any recollections of the making of that song or just what it means to you guys or what you want the listener to take away from that song?
I think the common thread in these three songs in general is that they're all like very, very, very focused on like grappling with mental health issues, you know? And I mean, Low for sure is like really on the nose about it. Like the entire chorus is just that, you know what I mean? Um, so yeah, that's what those songs are about, and they're not about having answers because there's not often, especially for like the collective human existence, there's no real answers for that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But like just, the songs are just about trying to keep pushing in the right direction. You know what I mean? Um, I think in some ways, no matter what I'm writing about, that's kind of what I'm writing about is just pushing in the right direction, trying to keep doing that.
And with like punk rock specifically being such a like outspoken genre of rock about mental health, about politics, about social issues, about so many different things. With newer bands like you guys and like kind of continuing to fly that flag, like how do you see the state of punk rock today? Because I know there's also a lot of like crossover with pop punk and all this other stuff, but some purists aren't really into that. But from your perspective, what do you think the future of the genre is?
There are things I like and things I don't like. But as far as punk rock goes, as far as punk goes as like, you know, an identity, like it doesn't have a sound. It's not supposed to have a sound. Like it's a mentality. So like the fact that like people are continually getting to that like age where they're like experiencing a lot of discontent in their lives and still like being able to find new ways to be punk and to make punk relevant, I think is rad, you know. The existence of uh, the internet and social media specifically, like it's done two very powerful and maybe opposite things to punk rock. And that's like, on one hand, it's extremely splintered. Like there's so many things that call itself punk rock, you know what I mean? And like it's almost difficult to find the common threads at this point with those things. But also, somehow at the same time, punk rock is very homogenized. Like no matter what country you're from, no matter where you're from, like there's these drum beats that show up, there's this style of singing, there's these melodies that like, you know, that are all there of like everybody kind of borrowing the thing, which is like not necessarily a bad thing. Um, I do think there's this beauty in like localized scenes and stuff that doesn't really exist as much anymore, where it's like, yo, like Richmond, Virginia bands are fucking rad because they do this. Gainesville, Florida bands do this. Atlanta bands do this, you know. Bands from Charleston, South Carolina are like this. That doesn't really happen anymore, I don't think. You know, maybe there's like some undercurrents, but not the way that it used to be. I don't want to be a fucking hater about it. I don't want to be like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, punk rock used to be good. It's like, shut up, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's just people trying to like find themselves and relate to something and like maybe feel a little bit better about the stuff they don't feel good about, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree. I know some people like when you get bigger names that are associated with the genre, I know like some people kind of feel like it's not when they get to a certain level of success, it's not punk because it's no longer underground or like DIY or anything like that. But I'm like, bro, they're still saying the same message. They're still like anti-establishment, like maybe anti-authority is a better word. Like you look at bands like Green Day and Sum 41. Like a lot of people think they're like pop punk. That's not real punk. But I'm like, man, they're saying the same thing just in a different way.
Yeah, and I don't think there's no like hard, fast rule. Like being a sellout doesn't really exist anymore anyway. Um,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it used to, you know, it used to kill bands literally, you know, like not the people in them, but the bands.
Hmm.
Um, but like yeah, I don't know. I think once you get to be a person who has like you know, you're responsible for paying all your own bills and shit, and then like, you know, like the absolute terror that comes with having insecurities with food or money and stuff like that, and being like, yeah, do you really wish that your heroes would stay in that place? You know, like, do you wish that they'd be one flew away from losing the shit job they have when they're not touring and then being homeless? You know, like, is it going to be real for you if you see your favorite guitar player pawning his guitars to pay his electric bill? You know what I mean? So like, there's a lot of stupid stuff that happens with that, but also, yeah, there's like some big rich rock bands that wear that stuff like a costume and they don't give a fuck about the real ethos. You know what I mean? Like it's about selling a product, and then that sucks. But I think if you have a keen eye, you can spot that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how you said that too. Like there's a difference between like being about it and then trying to sell something like being I always use Kiss as an example just because they're so good at like business oriented stuff and
Yeah.
like
I feel I'm sorry if you're a big Kiss fan, but like I feel like Kiss is not even a real band. Like they're like they make like jingles.
yes.
That's a hot take. Some people there's the comment section is going to be on fire about that probably. But dude,
I'll be honest, I used to be a huge Kiss fan when I was in like middle school and like I thought they were great because like I grew up on classic rock. Like I love Rush, I love Iron Maiden. So
yeah, yeah.
eventually I made my way to Kiss and I thought their music was amazing, but then after a while I listened to more of their music. I'm like, man, they got three songs. That's it. Like they got the same chord progressions, they got the same strumming patterns.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like
That's true.
there's nothing wrong with songs being accessible to other people that want to know how to play them. Like that's pretty cool. But
Yeah.
like that's what folk music is. You know what I mean? Like is like making songs purposefully where like people can understand the structure, people can share them, and like like so there's nothing bad about your songs, simple or easy to swallow. But like yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just feel like art and business are very opposed to one another. And like, if you want to be an artist, you're going to have to put some business in it at some point, but you have to be very careful about how much business you let get in there because every ounce of business is compromising your art. And a band like Kiss is like all business. It's like art is locked away in a tiny little box, over here. And it's like, just don't open that box. Just, you know what I mean? That's just the way that I feel about it.
Yeah, me too. I think you're absolutely right. And I've had that same opinion for a very long time about the relationship between art and business because it's a very dicey thing, especially when you like for example, if you're like when you try and mix music and become a full-time musician, there has to be a like business that goes into it, but at there comes to a point where you have to ask yourself like at what cost does it come to that to the music itself? Um and I
Yeah,
think even for like photographers and videographers, because I'm in that boat, it's very dicey because it's like you gotta spend so much time with the corporate like rule book, f so to speak, that it kind of compromises what you're actually trying to achieve.
sure. 100%.
But
It's a difficult thing.
I also think lyrically, um, when COVID hit, um, everyone was like kind of shut down, but everyone was talking about like, okay, when concerts come back, when this happens, there's going to be albums coming out every week from bands because there's like this over saturation of material that people have been sitting on because they can't release it yet because nothing's happening. I also feel like with punk rock, that's kind of happening right now because you look at the state of the world today, there's no shortage of lyrical inspiration. So I think the future of the genre is like in very good hands for maybe not the best circumstances, but I think it's going to create some very valuable art in the near future.
Yeah, I hope that you're right. I think at least from the standpoint of releasing physical media, um, it's going to keep getting tougher.
Hmm.
So it'll be interested to see. I mean, but like art always finds a way, you know. Um, and you don't have to be putting out cool colored vinyl records to make punk rock. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, I think all that stuff it's going to get maybe even more difficult here soon with like inflation stuff, you know, the tariff bullshit, all of that stuff is just like, it's all going to get really tough. The hope is that like, it's not just music that gets made and sits on a shelf somewhere or in a hard drive somewhere, that it actually inspires community. You know what I mean? Because like the whole reason that it exists is to bring people together, like in the very neighborhoods that you exist in, like more so in, getting tens of thousands of followers on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. Like that's all fine and good, but like what's happening when you step outside of your house every day? Who are the people that you see? And like, you know, are you working together to like make your immediate lives better? You know what I mean? Like, hopefully people are listening to punk rock songs in a couple of years and like planting community gardens and shit. So they don't have to deal with buying as much food from corporate grocery stores. Like if that's the future, then I'm hopeful.
Yeah, me too. Now I also want to talk about the band's aesthetic because if I'm not mistaken, you kind of create all the artwork for the albums and the EP covers. I
Yeah.
love the uniformity of it and how it's like you got the white borders and then like everything's kind of concentrated in the middle.
Hmm.
What's your creative process like, and how do you go about f number one, figuring out the vision for a specific release, and also trying to bring that vision to life with the covers.
I'm a visual artist in my like day-to-day life as well. So it's like a separate practice than being in this band. But at the same time, like the things that I'm exploring in paintings are the same themes that I'm writing songs about. You know what I mean? It's the same stuff. So it's like I don't have to like if I just let that happen, I don't have to try to construct the perfect image for this EP or the last LP or the one before that. You know what I mean? I don't have to, it's not a thing. I don't have to stress about that part. Like I have that part, you know? I have to stress more about not getting any typos in the liner notes. You know what I mean?
Have there been typos in liner notes in the past?
God, I hope not, man.
Um, that's really interesting because I'm curious, like, do you for your day to day, like you said, you're a visual artist, do you ever get burned out on doing art just like around the clock for both your day job and like your side hustle, so to speak? D does it ever like get exhausting for you?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. But like, I always have a lot of irons in the fire. Like, I make, as much as I do anything else, I make custom furniture. And that's
Hmm.
kind of like, that's primarily how I make my living these days. Um, so I have this fortunate thing where I can take my ADHD brain and I can work on a painting and then I can go out to my wood shop and I can mill lumber or like weld up, table frames for a while and then I can come back to that painting and then I can pick up my guitar and then I can pick up a pen and work on those lyrics, you know what I mean? And it's like it's a delicate balance and I like there's a part of me, man, that like really envies some of these contemporary painters that just like they have, you know, they have this routine where like, you know, just like anybody that goes to work at an office, they walk into the studio and they put in 8 to 10 hours every day painting,
Hmm.
and their output is so impressive. But like, yeah, I get burnt out, man. I'm if I'm anything, I'm an overthinker all the time. You know what I mean? And like everything that I make, I'm thinking about it all the time. You know what I mean? And yeah, it gets exhausting and I have to like step away and like, but at the same time, I can't do nothing. Like, I can't like just sit around and do nothing. So like, I'm always doing something. So I'm fortunate that I have all these different things to just pour energy into, even though at the end of the day, the amount of things that I'm always doing is like each one is hindering the other in some kind of way,
Yeah.
a little bit. You know what I mean? Uh, but that's just that's how I'm wired, I guess, and that's how I'm going at it. I don't know.
I know exactly how that is. Like for what I do for Dead Noise in general, it's a very multi thing. Like I do like there's photography, I film like local bands and I do highlight videos. I do these interviews. I do a lot of horror movie stuff. Like I make video like kind of video essays about horror movies. And
Uh-huh.
then there's a whole blog component with like a bunch of writing, and I'm a very slow writer. Like I'm barely literate some days. So like the time that it
That's
takes to
okay though. Yeah.
yeah, and the time that it takes to like edit interviews or do write-ups or go out to shows and do stuff for those, like if I'm busy in one avenue, it kind of comes at the expense of the other, but I'm always doing
Yeah,
something, like you said. So I think the fact that like even though like I feel like I'm behind in some areas, I'm like, well, I'm still productive, so it's not like a bad thing.
totally. And I think, it's easy, especially the way we experience other people's lives through like very curated snippets and social media and stuff like that.
Hmm.
It's easy for people like us who like you know, do a lot of things and are bouncing around to see people that have these like very streamlined, apparently very streamlined lives that are like just look all the lines are clean. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, what a thing, you know? And it's easy to judge yourself against that and be like, if I could just get my shit together. And it's like, dude, we're over here doing the work of four people inside of one body. You know what I mean? Like we gotta be kinder to ourselves, I think, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with like the meaning or the lyrical content of your EP. Just because like mental health comes in like very like multiple avenues. Like there's overthinking, there's just general like discontent, and like the sources that it can come from are all like different areas, whether it's your job, your friends, your social circle. But it all kind of comes down to just like chilling out and being kinder to yourself, like you said. Um,
Yeah.
when it comes to like your band's aesthetic, like I said, the uniformity is a great thing. Is that kind of something that you try and be cognizant of, or do you think like looking ahead to the future, are all covers gonna be that kind of style? Or do you think like in future releases, depending on what the music calls for, there's gonna be like a shift in style, aesthetically?
I would be stoked if we made 10 more records and you could identify it from 20 feet away. You'd be like, oh shit, that's that new Reconciler record. You know what I mean? But still be able to make that interesting. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, so that's certainly the hope, man. That like, you know, if you look at everything we've done, it's not all as cohesive as you might think. It's been getting more and more so. And I think, you know, I feel like I've gotten to a place where like it's kind of dialed in now for what I want right now, for what I like, what I feel like I want this music to look like, if that makes sense. If the music shifts and it calls for something else, if I'm not willing to answer that call with what it needs, then like I'm doing a disservice, you know what I mean? So it's like, who knows what'll happen, man? It's like that's what making art is like, you know, we're just making products, then yeah, I got the blueprint for the product and we're just gonna print it, you know. But like if we're gonna make art, I don't know what it's gonna be. We'll see.
I really like that. Like you said, like I feel like you guys already have a pretty identifiable look just for people that are like in the know, because it's like I can definitely like look at something and be like, oh yeah, that's this band, that's that band. Like that's a very important thing because I think when people think about band aesthetics, a lot of it goes to fashion and the way people look on stage or what they wear for their photo shoots for album campaigns. But I also think a lot of it goes into the covers too, because you look at bands like Iron Maiden and Ghost and even Linkin Park, like they have very defined visual looks to coincide with the music. And I think you guys are
Yeah.
on the right path too, because I can definitely like if I'm on Apple Music just scrolling, I would definitely be able to point out a Reconciler release.
Oh, thanks, man. That honestly, that really means a lot to me. I really appreciate that. Um, and you know, you mentioning the Maiden art stuff, like I'm a I'm a passive Iron Maiden fan at best, but I do really enjoy Iron Maiden. Like they're great. And but like the visual stuff that they're dedicated to has been really inspiring to me. Um, Not so much their stage prop stuff because I don't think I could ever play in a band that could ever afford even a time, you know, like we'd be like the fucking Spinal Tap version with the little Stonehenge coming down, you know. But like the album cover stuff, like having the character that comes through every time and like changing it enough to make it like, oh, this is a new version. Like it's cool, man. I love that stuff. So yeah, I really appreciate that being something that's evident at this point.
Yeah, I was really curious to hear like who some of your either artist or band inspirations were as far as the visual side goes, because like you can get inspiration from a certain art, like a certain visual artist. Like I think the guy who does Iron Maiden's artwork, or the guy who used to do Maiden's artwork in the 80s, was Derek Riggs. I might have that name wrong, but or
I
it could
think
just
that
be a
sounds right.
band in general, because you look at, for example, the Misfits. They don't have a very defined like a very specific artist who does all of their albums, but they have a character and like
Yeah,
very specific rules for that character. So
yeah.
when you think about like the work that you do for your band, like are there any visual artists or bands that kind of stick out to you as far as inspiration goes?
I'm unabashedly a huge Hot Water Music fan. Like they're incredible, and you know, me finding that band as a young teenager was literally life changing for me. Um, Being a person who was like a guitar player that loved music so much that didn't quite have the confidence to be on stage yet, you know what I mean? Like being that person who also, you know, had been like drawing and painting my whole life and stuff, but like really didn't feel like I was good yet and stuff. And then I find this band that just like, you know, like when you're young and you like find that band that just feels like everything they say they're speaking to you kind of thing. It's like finding that. And then like not only was their music killer, but like all of their records had these amazing paintings by Scott Sinclair, who's an incredible painter,
Hmm.
and it's just like, and I think that started me on this path of like finding these intersections of visual artists who are also musicians, you know what I mean? Like Hot Snakes is a very similar thing with like Rick Froberg being a visual artist as well and like doing all their art. Like when there's that thing, I just feel like it becomes more of a whole package. You know what I mean? Like, and even though Scott Sinclair wasn't in Hot Water Music, it just seemed like it was such a relationship between that artwork and that sound. You know what I mean? They very much understood each other. So, so yeah, that stuff. But like, I don't really, yeah, at this point in my life, I don't try to paint like anybody else for the sake of album covers or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, my painting pursuits are more like, the artists that I'm really inspired by in that way are, more at this point in my life, like, you know, classical painters and stuff. You know what I mean? And like trying to imagine what like people that painted hundreds of years ago would be painting in this world now, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
That is a really interesting point that you just brought out too, because like when I was looking at the covers, I'm like, you can kind of tell, like especially like when you take today's albums into context, a lot of it is like photography based or like variations of like graphic design, digital design, but yours like they look like paintings. And I think that that's like a really cool thing. And I love looking at classical art. Like I know there's different movements of art and different eras. I'm not very well versed in that, but I love Dali and I love Van Gogh and
Yeah, same.
like to this day like Starry Night. I know that's like the most basic thing ever, but it's still like my favorite painting is Van Gogh's Starry Night.
There's nothing wrong with loving that painting. It's rad for a reason, and I don't know if you've ever gotten to see it in person before, but if you do, you definitely should because like it will be a whole different experience than the images that you've seen of it. Like yeah, it'll blow your mind, man.
Before I let you go, this is my favorite part of every interview. I have a speed round for you. So I've got five
All right.
questions. If you want to elaborate, you can. I don't care about the speed part of this. The first question is your favorite song to play live,
By and large, my favorite song to play live is probably the song "All We Have" off our first LP.
your favorite city to play in,
I mean, I think our favorite show every year is to play the Fest in Gainesville.
your most embarrassing moment on stage.
A couple years ago, we were on tour leading up to Fest, and I got like super sick as soon as we hit the road.
Oh,
And my like it was a thing that was going around that fall. I don't know what it was, but it was like a really intense cold that was just killing people's voices. And mine, like, I'm pretty rough on my voice when I'm singing. I have a pretty beat up set of pipes anyway, but my voice was just gone. And we played uh we played this house show at this really cool DIY space in Gainesville like the night before the fest actually started. And it
Hmm.
was like a rad party. Like there were people there from all over who had flown in early. There were people from other countries there. It was like the energy was happening. I was sick. I felt like shit. I was like laying in the van while everybody was like partying out there. And I like get myself together and go inside, set up to do the show. And we open the set with the song Honest Words, which is like a me playing guitar and singing only intro. And for some reason, I thought that would be the song that would like help my voice like do a thing. And like the sound that came out when I started singing was like the most horrifying sound that I've ever made in my life. And like seeing the look on everybody's faces in the room was like, it was tough, man. And everybody was just like, oof. Like, so probably that. But fortunately that, you know what I mean? Like I don't think anything worse has happened than that, which is nice.
Your dream tour lineup.
If there was a tour that could in theory in some universe happen, that was Jawbreaker, Hot Water, Leatherface, and us,
Oh,
then like then I could just like take a header off the back of the stage after the last show and be done. It'd be good.
and the last question, this one's always my favorite one. The song you wrote that means the most to you.
It's very hard for me to like think in absolutes.
Hmm.
That might be starting to become obvious. Um, but uh, I think a song that I'm like kind of grappling with what it means a lot right now that we play often is Honest Words.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a song that uh, it's a song that I wrote about my dad, but I tried to do it in this sort of cryptic way that like it could easily sound, I think, that I'm writing about like a girl or something, you know what I mean? But it's not. And, my dad has passed away since I wrote that song. And I wrote it like kind of out of anger.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah, I don't know. I like, I took it out of the set list for a while. I couldn't get through it. And we're playing it again now. Uh, yeah, and I'm just trying to figure out like, I don't know what it is now, you know? It's like when I say, I can't give my honest words to you tonight. Now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm super sorry for your loss too. I can't
Oh, thanks, man.
imagine. Um, yeah, that's a heavy one for sure. Um,
Yeah.
like you said, I always appreciate when artists write kind of ambiguously, where you kind of can't tell like the intended subject of the song. Like for example, my first concert was Skillet, and they're for people who don't know, somehow they're a Christian metal band, but a lot of their older songs, their newer songs not so much, but a lot of their older songs were not very preachy, and like if you didn't know they were a Christian band, you couldn't really tell they were about Jesus. Like
Yeah.
it was kind of like you said, it kind of sounded like it would be about a girl or like a friend or something like that.
Hmm.
So I always appreciate when artists do that. But also like as someone who like hyper analyzes lyrics, I'm always like curious as to what the meaning of the song is, and a lot of artists kind of leave it up to interpretation, like AFI, like they never say the meaning of their songs. I'm like, what does this mean? I need to know.
I mean, I'm I'm more than willing to like get in the weeds with the meaning stuff for me, but like um because that stuff is important to me. I'm writing about things that I feel like are important, and I'm trying to like put it out into the world, you know, in the hopes of like connecting with other people that have shared experiences, if anything. So like I like to talk about what songs are about, but I know that like as soon as it goes out into the world, like these songs today, I have to like I have to let go of those reins a little bit because like those songs are never going to mean the same thing to anyone else. You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of the beauty of it, but like everyone else's lens is just as important, So like uh I don't know. It's an interesting conversation to have with people who like already have, you know, opinions about what songs are about that I've written. It's all really important. And it's like if you care about all of it, like it's not like no part is just gonna be like, yeah, just whatever, it's just easy or whatever. Like, yeah, playing in a band is rad. Like it's like, dude, yeah, playing in a band is rad. Sometimes little pieces of it are so cool, but like in a couple hours, we're about to hit the road. And like, I already left my home 2 days ago to come up here and practice and then play a show. Like I'm already on tour. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So like by the time I get home and experience like real comforts again and see my dog again, you know what I mean? And like cook normal food and sleep in my own bed, I'm gonna be on the road through 5 states, like with the worst sleep, eating food that I probably don't like. You know what I mean? Like just careening through existence, you know what I mean? And like the 30 minutes a night that we're on stage, like damn well better make up for the other 23 and a half hours of the fucking day. You know what I mean? Because all of that part is so difficult. So like, yeah, you absolutely have to love it. And you have to like, it's not to say that you have to like love, like you have to be in love with the shitty parts of it, but like you have to love it in a way that you can find joy in the shitty parts. When we're driving, when at this tour doesn't end at home again, it ends at the furthest point. You know what I mean? So like that day that we have to do an 11-hour drive in the van together with the three of us, like we better have some good fucking jokes. You know what I mean? Like there better be something happening. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, and if you're a person that like yourself that takes your time just to talk to people like me, like I'm sure that it complicates your life so much. And you have like, you obviously have like a professional setup to do this thing. And like you've dedicated a lot of time and energy to being good at this. Like you're very good at this. I've really enjoyed this, by the way.
Thank you.
But like, you know, I don't know if you're making $1 million a year doing this. That's none of my business. But like I would imagine maybe not. But like yeah, it's like, but hopefully it's fulfilling, and like it's all of us doing this thing to try to just be a part of something that's bigger than ourselves and be a part of something that isn't just like marching through life like the fucking status quo version of it wants us to.
Yes, 150%. I'm like obviously I love my family, I love my friends, I love the people in my circle, but like as far as a professional thing goes, like this is what brings me the most fulfillment, the only fulfillment really. Like I love being able to do this and and like there have been times where it does feel like work, but like when I was in college and I was boxing, like obviously my father was a Marine, so like we were taught the phrase embrace the suck. Like you don't have to love the shitty parts of it like you said, but you have to embrace it because like the parts that you do enjoy come at a price.
Yeah,
Like
I
when I'm
love that.
so when I was
Embrace the
boxing,
suck.
yeah. So when I was boxing and when I was doing this stuff, like if I'm up like late hours of the night, like editing or just trying to figure stuff out, I'm like, look, this is what it costs. This is like I have to embrace the suck. And I think a lot of
Yeah,
people, like you said, being in a band, it looks glamorous, it looks amazing, but it is a grind. And I think a lot of people don't really know how much of a grind it is, especially at the local level. Like just starting out in this industry now that's so oversaturated with talent, just to get noticed by people, it takes a lot of work. Um, and people showing up at shows, that's another hassle in itself. But but at the end
Yeah.
of the day, like we can just hope that it's rewarding enough to be worth it. And for me it is, for you it sounds like it is, and I'm super happy because I love the music that you're making. I love the
Thanks, man.
messages in your music, especially this new EP. I know it just came out 11 and a half hours ago as of now, but I've been spinning it all morning, so
Oh man, thank you so much. Thank you.
but for this go around, this was everything I had for you. Was there any closing message to any Reconciler fans, anything you want to plug, anything like that?
The songs are out everywhere, but if you're a person that likes vinyl records, um, it's a small number pressing of this thing, so that it's very limited. So if it's something that you dig and you want to get a copy of it, you might want to jump on it. Um, and if you're a person that's watching this that likes, our band at all, just thanks.
Number one, I hope everybody who watched this and you made it this far, thank you for making it this far, and thank you for watching. And if you haven't checked them out by this point, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah, get your shit together.
Get come on now. But yeah, thank you so much for the time. This I had a lot of fun with this too, and like I
Yeah,
said,
this was great. Thank you.
love the music. I hope to have you on again someday, and maybe see you live at a show one of these days. Just hopefully something works out soon.
Absolutely. And like you know, please send us your contact info or whatever, and if we're ever passing through in the future or whatever, like we'll try to coordinate something. Um, you know, send us an email or your socials or whatever. Um, I'm sure we're probably already connected on socials at this point. I'm not sure.
We might
Um,
be.
yeah, but yeah, like would be great to meet in person or like play a show in the town that you live in at some point.
Hmm.
Yeah, but this was great, man. I really appreciate it. And like, I don't know, it's nice to like you can always tell if you're going to be able to have like a just a good normal like natural conversation with the person. And I could tell as soon as we sat down, and I was like, all right, this is going to work. But like, but even though that part is going to work, like you don't know if the other person has like put a lot of thought into guiding this thing. So I appreciate that you have, because I can definitely be just a rambler a lot of times. So
Me
yeah,
too.
this was great. I really enjoyed it for sure.
Thank you so much. And that really does mean a lot. I try to be professional but still have a good time, if that makes sense. So I like to keep
Yeah,
a balance of casual and professional. Like I try to have every band know, like I know my shit, but I also try to have fun with it. And yeah,
yeah,
this was a blast, and I can't wait to do it again. And to
cool. Let's do it. Yeah,
everybody who watched this, thank you for watching. And if you haven't already, check out their three songs EP by Reconciler. It just dropped today. It's already out. Check it out if you haven't already. And until the next interview, stay tuned, stay scared, and I'll catch you later.